Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick unboxing and first look at the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra for 2023. Now, this just arrived from Samsung. I pre-ordered it on the announcement day, the Unpacked event, so it's roughly a month now, and I'm excited to share this with all of you. It is very similar, obviously, to the Tab S8 Ultra, but we've got some new hardware. I think the most impressive feature is we finally have an IP68 rating. And while some people may say, well, that's not a big deal, I completely disagree. I mean, I remember reviewing Sony tablets that had IP68 ratings like nearly 10 years ago or 8 years ago, and for whatever reason, everyone sat on their hands and basically decided we didn't need that, even though these things go out into the world with you in places that traditional laptops often do not, which is why water resistance and dust resistance is critical. Now, I went with the beige color just because it's the first time that Sammy has ever offered a beige color, so I figured it was a no-brainer. For those of you wondering, I did also receive my Z Fold 5 pre-order today, so that's also a video that is on the channel if you're interested. And a lot of people feel like Samsung did very little this year, but I would argue that, and this is not defending what they've done, I would argue that the competition did very little. Yes, we finally got a true competitor from the Pixel Fold, and this tablet finally has true competition other than the iPad, which, because of the screen real estate on this device, I don't even know how much the iPad really competes with it. But we've got Lenovo's Tab Extreme, which I've been waiting to get my hands on to review. Hopefully that will come in sooner than later, which is also very expensive, but there's no question. When it comes to what I'm about to share with all of you, there is no better tablet on the market here in 2023. I can say that because my Tab S8 Ultra is amazing, and this is only going to be better. So, we've got a white S Pen. Haven't seen one of these before for their tablet line, and that's because, well, it's never existed. So that's pretty cool. And I did not order the keyboard case for this, and that's because I will say here, shame on Samsung with that $350 price point. I mean, I know Apple is bad. You don't have to see if you can one-up them. So, and last year it was priced the same way, but if you pre-ordered, like I did, this generation as well, it was discounted heavily, and they did not offer that discount this year, which is why I didn't bother buying it. So if they thought they would get me hooked last year, mistake on Samsung's part. The only thing they offered discounted was the slim keyboard cover, which is not for me because it doesn't have a trackpad. So there you can see that beige color. It almost, I have to say, kind of looks like a gold, a subdued but gold color. Looks like I got a scratch on this thing right out of the box. Oh, just dirt. Thanks, Vietnam. I'm kidding, of course. But and I do believe this is made in Vietnam, just like the phones. That's where Samsung's been manufacturing now for quite a while. And QC is generally very good. So kudos to Vietnam. Don't get me wrong. So what has changed? You can see we've got two cameras here. We also have two cameras on the front. The real big difference is really the processor, along with that IP68 rating, and then the display got significantly brighter. And if you watched my Unpacked event, you already know that. Quick rundown of the buttons. Power button, volume rocker, hopefully that is in focus, now it is. Microphones up at the top. We have this is a Wi-Fi only tablet, so that is a SIM ejector slot there because it does have storage expansion. Micro SD, Type-C port there for charging. The speakers on this tablet are excellent. I already know that. And then the Pogo connector. So this will work with my keyboard case from last generation, but they modified the Pogo port, so essentially the way it mates is nowhere near as solid. That's where you would have to go with the new generation for $350 US, but I have decided I'm going to just use the keyboard part on this and just get the best case with kickstand on the market. So Samsung, again, you lost business for no good reason. Now, why this S Pen is white and the tablet is beige, I'm not really sure, and I don't think it's just me. Hopefully that comes through. Actually, on camera, they kind of look like they match. But in person, I will tell you now, this is more of a gold. The pen is more of a white. Or maybe it's more of a patina. I don't know. At any rate, incredibly thin, as usual, and really the lightest 14.6-inch tablet experience with what should be the best OLED display on the market. So a lot to like here, but if you're wondering, well, what is the biggest upgrade? Besides the IP68, it really is the processor. And generally, I'm not going to point to a CPU bump and say, folks, you need to buy this because of that. And I'm still not going to say that here with the Tab S9 Ultra. In fact, I think the Tab S8 Ultra is going to become a great value as it goes on sale. And if you don't need the latest and greatest, the Tab S8 Ultra is phenomenal. But one big difference here, as well as here, is that Samsung claims in both their phones as well as the tablets this generation, they changed the cooling design for the processor. So why would that matter? Well, the previous gen, the Tab S8 Ultra, of course, had the Snapdragon Gen 8 under the hood, which was a great processor. But we found out immediately at launch that in spite of having that great processor, they had to essentially, take away performance because it would overheat. So we were not able to get the full breadth of capability that processor GPU combo had to offer from Qualcomm. And Samsung knew that a lot of people were not happy with that. In fact, a lot of people said, I don't want the tablet because of that. Like, why brag about your latest spec processor and then also tell us you're not going to get full performance because it's going to overheat. So we're going to underclock it and basically, write some custom software for it so that you'll never have full performance, but you'll get as good battery life and as little overheating as possible. So here in this generation, as I mentioned, with the foldables as well, we have a new cooling solution, and the Gen 2 chip is much more optimized, as you would expect with every generation, right? Great processor. How do you make it better? It's not just faster, it's by optimizing battery life, performance for its DI components like cameras. So I'm not expecting to be blown away by the cameras on board here, but they're still going to be best in class for a tablet. And now, between the IP68 rating and processor that should be able to run at full performance, because I haven't heard anything about it being essentially, strangled in order to give us decent battery life with that over 11,000 milliamp hour battery. So I anticipate that this is going to be, from an operational standpoint, actually a big improvement over the mixing my words here, over the Tab S8 Ultra. But even though it should be a big improvement, that does not mean the Tab S8 Ultra, as I stated before, is not still an amazing tablet that's going to be able to do everything that you want. Now, this particular model that I purchased is not the 1 terabyte. The 1 terabyte would be my preferred choice because of the 16 gigs of RAM. This model, the 512 plus the 256, are still only running 12 gigs of RAM. I would like to see that change. That probably will next gen, because I think that it would be smarter for Samsung to give us 16 gigs even in the 512, maybe relegate the least expensive, the 256 to 12 gigs. But again, that's not something where I expect to see a major performance difference anyway. You're not doing anything incredibly heavy. It's mostly going to amount to a difference in your multitasking capability. And last year, I didn't have any problem with the 12 gigs of RAM. I don't anticipate having any problem this year. Their phones, they top out at 12 gigs. I'd like to see 16. It just hasn't happened yet. So I think that kind of tells you that the 16 gigs of RAM is really real padding on overhead that nobody really needs, but it's nice to have. So other than that, important things to know, basically just that, as I mentioned, the screen brightness is superior, and now that it's water resistant and they actually make outdoor designed cases for rugged carry-on, basically, so that you don't have to worry about it getting broken, and it's designed to go to the pool and the beach or wherever, although I don't know how much I recommend that, because remember, even though we have an IP68 rating, which means it can be fully submerged, they're talking about fresh water. They are not talking about salt water in a salt pool or salt water in the ocean. So, if it's a lake, fine, but anything else, tread lightly. Just be aware of that. But again, battery life should be better, overall performance, gaming, everything that you could think of because of the new chip and because of the new cooling system should be really good. So I'm excited to test this out, but before I do that, let me go ahead and show you what else is in the box. Of course, I'm going to have to set this guy up, and oddly enough, as I stated, I do not have a case for this right now on its launch day, but that will come. There's the little cameo yet again with that combo, which it's a pretty nice combo to have. One of the biggest improvements that I didn't mention to the entire Tab lineup is that they all have OLED displays now. And it's fitting because OLED tech has finally become affordable. I remember in my college days talking about, analysts talking about 20 years until we would have scalability. Well, that was roughly right. I don't think because it actually took that long, but because manufacturers milked the hell out of it. Our Type-C to C charging cable that is included, you do not get a power brick. That should be obvious by now. Every manufacturer is staying away from that simply because the pitch is to save the world. And if that is the cost of sustainability, I'm on board. And of course, more recycled materials are being used. But when it comes to the internal components, those new chips and, of course, the OLED displays, they are organic light-emitting diodes, which is part of what makes them magical. It's still a rub. What can I tell you? We also get the SIM ejecting tool there, so you can get in to throw your micro SD card in. And that is pretty much it. Again, one of the slimmest and most powerful and I would say best looking tablets ever made. Nothing else really compares to it other than Lenovo's Tab Extreme, which again, hopefully I'll have soon to share with all of you. But for the time being, this is where it's at until then. And I'll include a link in the description, of course. $1,200 US gets you the best tablet, biggest tablet on Earth, other than Lenovo's product, but I'm still going to give the software side, obviously, to Samsung. Granted, I haven't used that tablet yet, but I have used Lenovo's products. They're great and a more affordable option than Samsung's. Pretty much the only option for premium tablets here in the States outside of Apple. So give them a look if this is out of your price range, and I will be covering more of Lenovo's tablets as well. And by the way, 3 days left on this pre-order. If you want to trade in with Samsung, I'm trading in my Tab S8 Ultra. That I'm definitely doing unless there's some kind of hardware defect with this. This is not like the phone where I've got to see if I want to keep it over the Pixel Fold, but I'm definitely trading in. $650 I think is a solid value. I looked at last year what I paid for the Tab S8 Ultra. It was $550, so this went up to closer to $600 after tax. So, they're making it consistent that I'm spending every year with them, as stated, a little under $600 US, which I think is fair for a new device if you want it and know you're going to use it almost every day. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button, and as usual, please feel free to subscribe, and please stay safe. Later.